Hello, in today's video, I'm going to talk to you about IELTS reading. Now, reading is one of the most challenging modules for an IELTS aspirant. The reason being, yes, you need to read across certain texts to be able to find the answers to the questions. Now, in IELTS reading, if you've taken up the academic reading, you have to read roughly around 750 to 850 or even 900 words per passage. And similarly, you will be going through 3 different passages, and as you read these passages and understand, you have to answer questions 1 to 40. So total of 40 questions completely to be answered based on your understanding of the passages given. So why do students find IELTS reading challenging? Number one reason is that most of these aspirants do not have the general habit of reading. So if you're someone who does not read much and then you are forced to take up a test like the IELTS, you have to read and understand to be able to answer the questions. Now, because you're not only in the habit of reading yet, you find it very daunting task. You find it difficult to follow the passages, understand words, and even understand the meaning that it is trying to convey. Now, all of these challenges can easily be tackled if, of course, you start developing your reading skills and a liking towards the module, and also try and use these tips that I'm going to discuss today. So, in your IELTS reading, there are various different types of questions that are possible, right? I told you have to answer around 40 questions. So what are the different types of questions that you will be going through? Referring the passage, understanding it, and answering the questions. Let's look at the top questions in IELTS reading. The first one is multiple choice questions. As the name suggests, you will be given 2 to 3 options, sometimes even 4 or 5 options. And out of these options given, you have to select either one right answer or you have to select multiple right answers. For example, imagine you are given a question where it says, what are the different items that are allowed to be carried to the venue? And you have a big list of items. Now you read the passage and probably out of the 8 things given in the list, maybe 4 are accepted to be carried into the venue. So you read the list, you refer the passage, and then you mark the right answer options. The 4 options that you feel are correct. So that is about multiple choice questions. Then you have the gap fills. Now gap fills simply mean fill in the blanks or completion question types. So you have various different types of completion question types like sentence completion, you have the summary completion, you have table completion, and even labeling a diagram. The next question type is matching. Now when it comes to the matching question, you have to sometimes match headings to paragraphs, or you might have to match features to a list given. So matching is a very popular question type. Then is the most famous true false not given or the yes no not given question type, where you have to either look at facts or opinions and try and find out what matches what is given in the passage. Then the last type of question is short answer questions. So there will be a question and you have to give in the answer in a couple of words, maybe just in a single word or 2 to 3 words. For instance, where am I sitting? So the answer is on the chair, or it can just be chair, right? So that's an example for short answer questions. Now in this video, I'm going to discuss one of the most challenging out of these. One question type which most students are highly confused about and would love to learn more tips about. Yes, you guessed it right. It is the true false not given question. So whatever I'm going to discuss today about the true false not given question type can easily be also applied to the yes no not given question type. So I know you're super excited to find out what techniques you can apply to answer these questions better and ensure that you get all right answers every time you solve a true false not given question type. So let's get straight to that. Now, there are different reading techniques that you must be accustomed to, right? What are the popular reading techniques that come to your mind? When I ask my students, most of them speak about the skimming technique or even the scanning technique. Well, of course, these two are the most popularly used techniques of reading, not just in your IELTS exam, but for any reading for that matter. You're going to a shop, you pick up a bottle of perfume and you're going to skim through the different contents labeled to find out the price and probably how long this perfume will last. Maybe you're picking up a packet of a food item and you want to know the expiry date, you want to know what contents it has and so on, or probably even method of preparing that particular item. So skimming and scanning are techniques that we use on an everyday basis. Now, in addition to the skimming and scanning, there is one more technique, and this will particularly help you in your true false not given question type, which is the intensive reading technique. So as the name suggests, it means you have to read more carefully, intensively at a particular portion. So please keep this in mind. Intensive reading does not mean reading the entire passage carefully. It means reading that part of the passage really carefully where you think the answer would be. So there's a statement given in the question. You scan for the keywords, look up for where it appears in the passage. And once you reach that location, you just have to read in detail around those few lines to try and find the answer. Alright, so let's use the skimming technique, the scanning technique and the intensive reading technique to try and solve the question type that we are discussing today, which is the true, false, not given. So before we delve into the passage, let's understand what these statements mean. The first one says true. Now, when do you write your answer as true? If the statement, that means the question given to you, right? You have the question booklet, so the question given on the booklet. If the statement agrees with the information. So information is what is given in the passage. So you're going to try and match the statement, which is basically the question, and you look at that bit in the passage which has the same information, and if the sentence in the question matches what is given in the passage, it agrees with it, then your answer is true. So you write your answer as true in full, TRUE, or you can use the short form and just mention the answer as T onto your answer sheets. Now remember, it's important to be consistent. So if you decide to write full spellings, then you have to always write it as TRUE, true, false, FALSE, and not given as NOT space GIVEN. But if you decide to write in short forms, you can skip this and just write it as T, F, or NG. Okay? Now let's look at the next word, which is false. Now, when do you write your answer as false? That is when the statement, which is our question here, so statement given in the question, it contradicts the information which is given in the passage. What do you mean by contradicts? That means it is opposite of what is given in the passage. Let's look at an example. Now, in the sentence, it says that the oranges are sweet. Now, in the passage, it mentions that the oranges are quite expensive. A lot of people tend to buy these oranges, though they are bitter. Now, clearly in the passage, it's given as The oranges are bitter and expensive, but a lot of people buy. But the statement is given as the oranges are sweet. Now, it is the opposite, or it contradicts, does not agree with what is given. So, we write it as false. Okay? Now, the third one is not given. When do you write it as not given? When there is no information on this given in the passage. So, definitely there is a statement given there, but you don't have any information in the passage to help you arrive at a decision as to whether it is true or false, that whether does it agree with it or is it contradicting it. So, you have no information given to support that. That's when you mention as not given. If you look at the same example of the oranges being sweet, which is one statement we saw, imagine another statement here that everyone eats oranges at their homes. Now, from the passage, we know that yes, oranges are expensive. We know a lot of people buy it even though it is bitter. But we don't know whether everyone eats orange at home. So, just because everybody buys it, we cannot assume that everybody eats it at home. And that is when we mark it as not given. So, after having understood these basic concepts of true, false, and not given, let's learn this with the help of a passage. Now here, I'm going to take the passage related to the image that you can see on screen right now. What do you think this is? Of course, a lot of us would have seen this particular structure somewhere or the other, maybe in temples, in forts, right? Maybe in an ancestral home. Now, if you've seen structure like this, do you know what they're called? Well, the passage that we're going to try reading today to answer the true, false, not given question type deals with this particular concept, which is nothing else but called as step wells. So we're going to try and read this passage, which is titled step wells, and I've shown this image to you so that you can connect to what the step well is. Now you have an idea of what the passage is going to be about. So let's delve into the passage. Right, so you can see that there is an introduction given here. We also have paragraphs which are marked as paragraph A. We have paragraph B. So these are two paragraphs. Then we have paragraph C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So I would say close to 8 to 10 paragraphs in a passage. Now, let's go to the first part of the passage. You have an introduction given here, which is given in italics. Now here, if you look at the passage, just to get an idea of what are we going to read about, it says, a millennium ago, step wells were fundamental to life in the driest parts of India. Although many have been neglected, recent restoration has returned them to their former glory. Richard Cox travelled to northwestern India to document these spectacular monuments from a bygone era. So we know we're going to read about step wells. We know they were fundamental to Indian life, and we know, this particular writer of the passage, Richard Cox, he's travelled all the way to northwestern India to document this. Right. Now, when you see the passage, you don't start reading the passage. Okay. Step 1, keep in mind not to read the passage. Don't start reading the passage yet. What do you need to do instead? You look for an image to help you understand what the passage is about. So if there's an introduction like this given, you just quickly read those 2 or 3 sentences given to have a background understanding of what you're going to read. And before you start reading the passage, go straight to the questions. Okay. So here I'm going straight to the questions. I'm skipping the entire passage. And here we have the questions. Of course, we first have the instructions given to us. Here we're going to answer questions 1 to 5, and we have just what we saw, the definition of true, false and not given. It is given every time in a question. Okay, so every passage you take which has the true, false, not given question type, you'll find these basic introduction and instructions always repeating. Now following these instructions, you have the 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, one below the other. Okay, so the first thing is to read the questions, and when I say read the questions, do not think you have to read all of the questions. So don't start reading questions 1 to 40. No. Read the questions for a particular question type. Now here, questions 1 to 5 are connected to the true, false, not given question type, which also means that the remaining set of questions, which will be of course 6 to 13, these will be some other type of questions. Now for each passage, you have around 12 to 13 questions. Okay, so for this passage, the first 5 questions fall under this category of true, false, not given. So how do we read? When you read, so I already told you one tip, that is don't start reading the passage yet. The second tip is go straight to the questions. And the third tip is do not read the entire set of questions. I would recommend for true, false and not given to go at least 2 questions at a time. Let's look at how it is done. So when I say 2 questions, we're going to just look at question number 1, question number 5. So here, let's have a look at question number 1. And as we read the questions, remember to underline the key terms. So what does the statement say? It says, examples of ancient step wells can be found all over the world. So 1, examples. 2, can be found. Examples of what? Of course, it is step wells. 3, all over the world. Now you have to read the passage, match this idea and find out whether it is true, which means it agrees, false, it contradicts, or not given, whether you don't know where the location is. Now when will this be not given? When you're not really sure where the location of step wells is, then you have to say yes, it is not given. Let's try and find out. So we've already read the introduction, okay? And from the introduction, we already know that the author has traveled to the northwestern part of India. Now let's look at the first paragraph. During the 6th and 7th centuries, the inhabitants of the modern day states of Gujarat and Rajasthan in northwestern India developed a method of gaining access to clean water. However, the significance of this invention, the step well, goes beyond its utilitarian application. Paragraph B, second paragraph. Unique to this region. Unique to this region. You stay stuck there. When you feel there's something connected to the statement that you've read, stay stuck there. Unique to this region, step wells are often architecturally complex. So and so. No problem. What do you understand by unique to this region? It means that step wells are found only in this region and not anywhere else. But what does our statement say? It says examples of step wells can be found all over the world. So what is our answer? The passage says it's unique to this region, which means it's unique to the northwestern India. But the statement says it's found all over the world. Does it agree? No, it doesn't. So it's not true. Is the information given? Yes, it's given because we know where the location is. So it's not given. But the answer is false because it contradicts the idea given in the passage. It is opposite to what is already given. Now, why did I say read 2 questions at a time? At the same time that you're reading question 1, you also go through question 2 and underline the keywords there. Why? Because it says step wells had a range of functions in addition to those related to water collection. Okay? So, not just water collection, it had many other functions as well. Now, so far that we've read, it just speaks about its location, but there's also a line there that says, however, the significance of this invention, the step well, goes beyond its utilitarian application. Now what is utilitarian application? The ones that I mentioned: access to clean water, fresh groundwater, dry season for drinking, bathing, watering. Goes beyond, that means in addition to, goes beyond, in addition to. So we already have that idea in addition given here, right? Now we continue reading in paragraph B, and it says, often architecturally complex. During their heyday, they were places of gathering, of leisure, relaxation and worship for villagers of all but the lowest castes. So other than it just being used for drinking water, stepwells are also places of gathering, in addition to those related with water collection. So we write our answer there as true, right? Because it agrees. Okay, now do you get an idea of how you're going to solve the true, false, not given question type? You look at the passage, you have a general understanding from its title, the image given or the introduction. You go straight to the question, and as you read the question, you underline the keywords and then start scanning for it, scanning for the idea. Now here is an additional tip that I would like to give. If it is questions 1 to 5 or the first few set of questions as true, false, not given in a passage, the chance is high that these questions will be related to the first few paragraphs and does not extend through the entire passage. Why? Because there are remaining questions to follow, and the questions that follow up to 13 would be from the remaining half of the passage. Okay, so we know we have to stick to the first few paragraphs, and we also should know that true and false question type 99% of the time it comes in order. So question number 1, 2, 3 and 4 will be one below the other. It comes in the order 99% of the time. Now keeping these tricks in mind, can you try and solve these questions that you can see on screen? Question number 3, 4 and 5, and tell me whether they are true, false or not given. Take some time. Now do try and solve these questions and send us your answers as comments. Now let me take you through the top tips to help you solve the true, false, not given question type. Tip number 1. Read 2 questions at a time. This will help you in a great deal. For instance, if one of the answers is not given, you will not be reading forever and forever because you've already read the second question. So you know the answers come in the order. So if, let's say, out of the 3 questions, the first one is true, the second one you're not able to identify, and the third one is false, then you know the one in the middle is not actually given, which is why you're not able to find it in the passage. So if you go 2 questions at a time, it will be highly helpful. Tip number 2, underline the keywords and also understand meaning. This is where the intensive reading techniques will come into place. Now, just matching the keywords alone, you shouldn't be answering. You should understand the meaning it conveys. Because the keywords might be present even in the passage, but does it ultimately convey that same meaning? That's what you'll have to find out. Tip number 3, scan for the keywords. Now this is your favorite technique, which is scanning and skimming. So identifying the keywords there, like we looked at stepwells, we saw location, right? So look at the keywords and scan for those words in the passage, and you have to read around that area once you find the word or its synonym. Step number 4, remember that answers mostly come in the order. Like I said, 99% of the time the answers follow the same order. Tip number 5, match the meaning conveyed in the questions to the sentences in the text. So before you decide yes, it's true or false or not given, always match the meaning and not just the keywords. And the last tip is mark your answers against the correct question number. Now this tip is highly helpful when you're copying down your answers from the question booklet onto your answer sheet. Make sure you mark it against the right question number. And when you write the answers, ensure that you're consistent in writing either the full spellings for true, false, not given, or just using the first letters as T, F, or NG. I hope this video was really helpful or insightful and you've got better understanding of how to solve the true, false, not given question type. I'm still waiting for your responses. Please type in your answer and let's see who gets the right answers. Thank you and follow us for more such videos on all the 4 modules of IELTS. Thank you.
MedCity International Academy. Trusted hands forever.